between training institutions of South Asian countries for possible partnerships and knowledge sharing. With the above context in mind and without further ado, let me introduce the distinguished speakers for our session today. And I believe we have all the speakers here for this session. We have with us expert speakers, Mr. Ved Mani Tiwari, CEO of the National Skill Development Corporation of India. Mr. Tiwari is the CEO and Managing Director at the National Skills Development Corporation, and he's also the Managing Director of its fully owned subsidiary, NSDC International. As a key member of NSDC, Ved plays an integral role in developing and executing NSDC strategies to drive skilling operations through the sector skill councils, training providers, and industry engagement. And we have a second expert speaker, Ms. Poonam Sandhu, financial sector specialist and ex-India team lead at the Natural Resources Defense Council. Ms. Poonam Sandhu's career has spanned most recent assignment. She was leading the NRDC India team in New Delhi. Her work with NRDC focused on clean energy, finance, and climate change policy issues. The way this session is structured is that we will have two expert speakers talk to us about the skilling related mandate and how it will help clean energy transition. And after that, we'll move to a panel discussion. In our panel today, we have with us Mr. Arpit Sharma from the Skill Council for Green Jobs, who's joined us today. We have Mr. Jeev Narayan Kafle, Council for Technical Educational Vocational Training, Nepal. And we have Mr. Ibrahim Asif Rashid, Ministry of Education, Maldives. The panel discussion will be moderated by Anurag Mishra from USAID, India. With this, we will move now with our expert presentations. If I may request Mr. Ved Mani Tiwari to kindly join us on the stage.
So thank you so much, Namrata. First of all, I would like to congratulate USAID for thinking and coming out with this conference, which is all about partnerships among the countries in South Asia region for a clean energy transition. I would like to thank USAID for inviting me to share my thoughts in this conference. So many of you would know and many would not know what National Skill Development Corporation is all about. So do we have a presentation here? Okay. Use this. How do we go? How do we go here? This is better. The screen will take for a second. So, our Prime Minister, our Honorable Prime Minister, during the 17th Pravasi Bharatiya Divas Convention, said today India not only has the potential to become the knowledge center of the world, but the skill capital as well. Our youth have skills, values, and the necessary passion and honesty to work. This skill capital of India can become the engine of development of the world. This is the motivating force for all of us at National Skill Development Corporation. National Skill Development Corporation is the central architect of the skill ecosystem in the country. We are a Government of India promoted organization, but we have representation from private sector also in NSDC. As this conference is all about partnership among South Asian nations as to how can we take the agenda for clean energy forward. Here are the credentials that National Skill Development Corporation has achieved. We have trained close to 30 million people over last 10 years or so. We have placed close to 9 million, and as Namrata was talking about that this session is about how the training centers can partner with each other. So we have 27,000 training centers across the country. If you see, there out of 30 million people trained, so close to 50% are women. So there is a very strong women agenda and we know how to integrate women into skilling ecosystem. We have catered to persons with special abilities or people from socially disadvantaged groups. We have a pool of trainers and assessors which provide strength to us to mobilize our resources. We have close to 650 skilling partners. Every single district in the country is covered by National Skill Development Corporation, and we have 37 sector skills councils through which we do this. If you see our ecosystem, close to 2,500 plus job roles have been created, and with model curriculum about 2,300, and if you see e-skill, e-courses, sector skill councils, and the network is, we also start from the school itself. 13,000 plus schools are part of this. There are establishment 38,000 establishments work with us, and there are model training centers and SSS, etc. As I showed you in the previous slides, we have reached out to close to 30 million people. We have now, post COVID, NSDC has expanded its ambit to outside the country, because our Prime Minister has, whenever he has gone abroad, there is demand from all the countries across the world to source talent from India. As you would have come to know that India is today, or perhaps maybe a few months down the line, will be the most populous nation on the earth. It is also important to note that our median age is 28, and our population will continue to expand until 2065. So massive demographic dividend that India has. This provides us an opportunity to partner the skill institutions across the South Asian nations. Through this forum, I would like to inform the delegates who have come from the other nations. While India itself has a large agenda, because our Prime Minister has under the Panchamrit has taken large targets for India itself, which is close to 500 gigawatt by 2030, coming from non-fossil fuel sources. You all know all those things. India becoming net zero by 2070. So all those five missions, India itself has a huge agenda, but we also believe that we can contribute to this transition, because clean energy and the climate change is a global phenomenon. It's not about India alone. And National Skill Development Corporation today is working with many countries across the world. We have our operations in 7 countries in GCC. We are working in Japan. We are working in Australia. So this is an opportunity for the delegates here who have come from other parts of the world, that you can reach out to National Skill Development Corporation. And for us, the skilling is not about the only at the blue collar worker level, because as many of you would know, that India has adopted a very ambitious skill and education program. Our national education policy today has adopted for itself that 70% of our education in our 70% component of our higher education has to come from skills. From in NSDC, we see our classification of industries is not from economic perspective. We do it from a skills perspective, and we believe that there are 3 broad industry segments that we want to pursue. One is a care economy. The world needs lots of care workers, whether they be the healthcare worker or the hospitality and tourism. The second is the way the digitalization has penetrated across the globe. So digital economy is the second area, and third is a green economy. And so we believe that every business today, it's not about the clean energy alone, but every business, every industry has to understand and embed clean technologies into their operation. Their carbon footprints have to become very carbon neutral. So considering this from this perspective, not only the industries, but also every job role in every company needs to have a green component. We were hearing just now about green bonds. So financing people have to understand that how green financing or green bonds, etc., can help, can play a role. We are seeing the transition of fuel transition. We are seeing, so the engineers have to now learn a new thing. We are also seeing a mobility transition from fossil fuel powered electric vehicles to electric vehicles, and that means that the clean energy movement is going to touch every aspect of life, and that would mean that all of us will have to work on these areas, and that is why we are working with multiple skill providers across the globe to bring the green aspects of every job and every industry, and that is where I think we can work with you. I would stop here and would invite questions to make it more participative. Uh, if any question is there, I would like to answer that. Yes, please.
Indian solar is developing, like the target of production I'm talking about. So at this moment, it's around 38 gigawatt solar module productions. It has been transmitted from 18 gigawatt to 38 in 2 to 3 years time. Now it will be 110 gigawatt another 3 years of time. And solar manufacturing also coming up. Solar cells, ingot, polysilicon, and I'm really seeing the very big gap in the people working in this kind of technology in the production area. The manpower is really not so much. There is not so much institute also really catering this kind of manpower. There are some institute. So is there is any kind of training for this kind of manpower development to really promote the manufacturing sector in India?
So as we know that module manufacturing has various components, and some part of it is fairly automated and some part of it requires a manual intervention. We are working with one of the large green energy producer in the country who are going to set up a large solar module manufacturing plant in southern part of the India, and there the from sourcing to training to placement, the entire value chain is being partnered by NSDC. So, and one good thing about that engagement that we are having, that this will be 80% of the workforce there will be women, because we also believe that the manufacturing typically has not been penetrated by women participation in the workforce. So I'll be happy to discuss with you the training program that we are going to do. We believe that this manufacturing is more, has to be more at the workplace itself, and that is where we are partnering with the manufacturers. We also have a digital platform, digital learning platform. So many of these courses, Skill India Digital app is there. You can download that app, and many of these courses will be available on Skill India Digital also. So I think I would like to wrap
Yes,
up here.
I have a question regarding that, regarding this skills. I mean, your initiative is that, there is a lot of greenwashing also taking place in this sector, because I mean, simply deploying the technology is not going to do until or unless there are end-to-end, solutions for that, regarding skilling is concerned, and regarding, I mean, so that, each and every sector of the, I mean, economy is so that the vacuum is completely filled, for that matter, in the small businesses, residences, etc. And so that there is a entire value chain, and supply chains are fixed accordingly. So what is a long term strategy for that? Because the sector is evolving and the technologies itself are not very well defined. So that this initiative can be can have a long term impact.
So as I told you that from skill perspective, we see the entire economy into only three segments, and one is a green skills. So as you are saying that the lot of greenwashing happens, that you do a carbon reduce carbon footprint at one end, but at this as you go further value chain, the carbon footprint is going up. And that is why it is important to understand that the green skills are not only at the energy production level, but production, distribution and consumption. At every place this is important, and that is where I, I was telling you that we have partnered with Singapore, where there's a Skills Future Singapore with which we are working, and in every segment of the industry and every job role we are working with them to bring the green consciousness.
Hi, good afternoon, sir. This is Orpo from EY. We came to know that recently NSDC has transferred itself to become change its logo to making reimagining future. And here we came to also know that you signed an MOU with an organization named Venice Energy, and you are trying to train 1 lakh people. Can you share what are you doing in that partnership?
So as we all know that the entire workplace is now changing because of the digitalization on one hand and on industry 4.0 on the other hand. We believe that the agenda for clean energy is very large, and conventional ways of skilling will not work. We are working with the partnerships that we are doing today is on the domain of digital construction, etc. How do we provide an app-based solution to the workers on the ground? Because the expertise for this cannot be penetrated so fast at every level. So the partnership that you are referring to is all about that we create a app-based system where any should be able to do every part of their work through an app-based system where all the engineering rules, etc., are available to them. We are also deploying BIM-based construction system for utility scale power plants. In Saudi Arabia, we are working on one power installation where the BIM-based construction is being provided from here. So the idea is that you need not have all the expertise at the ground itself. How do you make a hybrid skilled workforce where you deploy this expertise at the headquarters end and provide the solutions to the people at down to it. So this is an effort to bring the digital into construction itself, be it a rooftop construction site or a utility scale construction site. So both, so that is what we are doing, and that is the reimagined future for ourselves. Thank you so much, Namta.
Thank you so much, Ved, for very insightful, initiatives that NSDC is taking. Can I please request you to stay on the stage and join us here? And can I now request Ms. Poonam Sandhu to please come up and give her presentation on skills development to accelerate energy transition, gender and inclusion.
Great. Which one? This one. Oh, great. Thanks, Namrata, for the introduction. So I will focus a bit on the importance of gender and inclusion in transition. We all have probably heard of several data points for why gender, why inclusion. I will just speak to a few. 60% of the world's employed work in the informal sector. We know how important informal sector is for India, but they don't get the usual opportunities for skills development that the formal sector gets. So including them is very important for ensuring increases in productivity. Why women? World over, women have had lower than proportionate representation in the power sector. But in India, we face a bigger problem. It's not just the power sector, but women's representation in the workforce is fairly low at around 20%. And it's been at around this rate for a couple of years. So that's worrying. It's not increasing. The global participation rate for women is 46%. India is not only in comparison low to the developed economies, but also to our regional peers. Like Sri Lanka employs 13% women in utilities. Globally, the figure 16%. Sorry about that. And in India, it's less than 10%. So inclusion of women in the clean energy workforce will enhance productivity in the economy. We heard also from the gentleman from NSDC how India is now set to reap the demographic dividend. And a recent Economist article said that India could possibly do that. One of the constraining factors is the low female participation rate in the workforce. So we really need to work on that. Having more women in the clean energy workforce will hit multiple SDGs: gender equality, affordable clean energy, decent work, etc. So moving ahead, there is, as we've already heard, huge demand supply mismatch in the clean energy sector that needs appropriate skilling interventions. I most recently worked with NRDC, and NRDC along with CEW and the Skills Council for Green Jobs did a study which highlighted the sector's potential. So in meeting India's target of 500 gigawatts of non-fossil fuel, could generate about 3.4 million long and short-term jobs. Within the sector, we all know distributed renewable energy has the highest potential, and as many as 210,000 informal jobs can be generated in the very near future. An IEA study of the, again, I've forgotten, sorry. I've missed a slide, I think. Yeah, sorry. So an IEA study of the rooftop sector shows that in India, the rooftop sector employs 11% women. Globally, the figure is 32%. So very clearly, we need gender-targeted policies to include women in these newer sectors of renewable energy, electric mobility, AI, and this will help us tap the underutilized pool of highly educated and even semi-educated women, help them become users of clean energy products, preferred borrowers for customized loans for clean energy asset ownership, become skilled operators for operation and maintenance, and runners of clean energy business. At NRDC, we used to work closely with SEWA, the Self-Employed Women's Association, and we were working on a project together called Haryali Gram, or greening villages. The idea of this project was to bring clean energy to villages and also green practices and skill women for entrepreneurship and income earning potential. So we did a survey of a few villages in Gujarat and Rajasthan. And after that, we set about to do a few pilots. Now, the survey looked at the potential for clean energy product in different villages. Different villages had different needs. Some had a greater need for, say, solar water pumps. Some had for, say, biogas plants, etc. We also looked at the affordability factor. We looked at the skilling needs of different villages. And then we set about to do a few pilots. So this pilot in Pangani looked at two key interventions. The intervention was to scale up clean energy solutions such as biogas plants, energy efficient appliances like lights and fans, and cool roofs. Cool roofs, some of you may know, are low cost solutions to bring down temperatures in dwellings in the summer months. The second intervention was to increase livelihood opportunities for women entrepreneurs by providing them with skills to operate these clean energy solutions. There were three enablers that we identified for implementing these interventions. One was to identify the right technology. As I mentioned, which technology is most highly in demand in certain villages, to go for that. Appropriate financing mechanisms. We spoke to lenders in the vicinity. We convinced them about, providing loans for acquisition of these products at the most appropriate terms and conditions. And finally, skilling and upskilling to ensure that the women who bought these equipment were able to maintain them, repair them, and even use these skills then as livelihood options. So we found that skilling just in itself would not really solve the purpose. They would have to be users as well as productive employment generation capacities also need to come out of these skill generation or skill development programs. Sorry. I'll just quickly mention that while we were looking at these pilots, we found that there are certain challenges and opportunities that we faced in gender inclusion and skilling. And these challenges and opportunities will not be new for any of you, like the cultural barriers that women face, educational gaps, technical barriers, a host of other skills and support which is required for women to fill them. Although these are not new barriers for you, the reason I mention them is because, we can't take it as a given that women will, we can include women in skills development and training programs. It'll be automatic. It won't be. We will have to look at the kind of barriers they face when trying to get an education or training and, find solutions to overcome these barriers. And since we're at this, South Asia forum, I think there is a good opportunity for South-South cooperation and skill development. Shared experiences, we can have like online forums where with automatic voice translators, we can have shared experiences where women can share their experiences of using clean energy equipment, the kind of technical problems they face, the kind of homegrown solutions they might have even found to overcome these problems, the kind of cultural barriers they face, there being similarity in, the cultural context as well. So knowledge sharing through online platforms may be helpful between countries. There's also potential to use successfully developed training programs in one country in another because, for including certain categories of women, we need more of visually oriented, video-based training programs rather than text-heavy presentations like this one. So once an online training program has been developed, as we did here from NSTC, with again with the proper translation tools in place, they can be used in other countries. And this can help to defray the cost of, creating skill development programs from scratch. We can also use networks like the V-Power network, which are set up specifically to help train women in the power sector. So having said that, I was even asked to talk about some good experiences from other countries. And I have chosen an example from Panama. Normally, when we look at skill development programs, we do tend to look first at Europe and the US for examples. I was going through case studies from several countries. Now, almost all countries have skill development programs, given that everybody has committed to some NDCs as well as net zero. But what I found was the context differs a bit. the sheer number of people that India has to train is far, far greater than any of the developed countries. Just as an example, in all of Europe, the number of people who need skilling for clean energy transition as a whole is just 1/10 of the number of people that India needs to train for renewable sector alone. So we really, in terms of budgets, we have tighter budgets. The per person training budget is much tighter than what developed countries have. So I found there might be more lessons coming from other developing countries, other countries who also face the same issues in terms of resources for training. And in going through this case study, I found some interesting and useful facts that we can probably use to build into our skill development programs. Before implementing the training program, the skill development program for energy transition, Panama did a comprehensive mapping. Preliminary surveys were done to look at the sector-wise additional job needs, including direct and indirect jobs, permanent and transitory jobs, with identification of skills required for different types of jobs. The kind of training content which would align with the needs of workers to improve their learning and, limit dropouts, which often happens in training programs. Multi-institutional cooperation seems to be the bedrock of the program. The National Energy Secretariat is working in cooperation with the Inter-American Development Bank. And these two organizations are overall responsible for the skill development program. And they work in collaboration with the two main education institutions as well as the private sector, because the demand mapping comes from the private sector. Implementation is done through low-cost solutions like virtual classes delivered by mobile classrooms. There's also a built-in sustainability and scaling up in this program. So work is also being undertaken to train trainers in other cities, in other educational and training institutes. So the logistical problem for beneficiaries can be solved. Inclusion is a big aspect of their training program, and priority is given to elderly and unemployed technicians, current workers in the fossil fuel and ICE auto sectors, women and people with disabilities. Finally, they have a robust monitoring and evaluation system that supports the program administration and works on improvements. I will summarize here with 3 important points. One is that there is a big need for skilled clean energy workforce. This is a massive opportunity for a country like India, which is really going to be reaping its demographic dividend and needs to provide jobs and employment opportunities for people. Second, focus on inclusion of women and others who lack the opportunity in traditional energy sectors is very important. And thirdly, when we have better skilled workforce, it leads to higher productivity and hence faster economic growth for the country. Thank you.
Skilling is an important element for energy transition. While we had all the discussion of financing, policies, technologies, this will still remain an important aspect, and there is definitely a gap in the region. Second is it requires upfront investment. The returns cannot be seen on the Excel sheets, so we have to really think about it is also investment into the general economy and it's kind of a social investment. There is a need for cross ministerial collaboration. I think that's an important aspect. It cannot be driven by the energy ministry or just the education ministry. We have to have several stakeholders involved in this. And the last point is there is a huge opportunity for cooperation on this in the region. And I'm really glad to have the three panelists here representing three countries from South Asia. So let me first turn to our panelists from Maldives and Nepal. And a common question to both of you, if you can give us a little more insights on what your country governments are doing towards skilling with respect to the energy transition, and what are the challenges you face with respect to providing skilling in these areas. So maybe starting with Mr. Rashid first and then Mr. Kafir.
Thank you, Mr. Anurag, and thank you, Sarah, for giving me this opportunity. Uh, Actually, last 2 days I've been hearing about clean energy and renewable energy, but the thing is, actually, most of you have been talking about gigawatts and millions, but Maldives, we need to talk about tens or kilowatts. It's very different from all the other countries are in the region. So Maldives being a island nation and spread across the Indian Ocean with uh, very highly geographical distribution and uh, challenges with reaching out to different islands. And connectivity is also an issue in here. So each island by itself is independent with their power and everything. For example, they have their own generators, they have their own desalination plants, so everything they have on their own. So, and we need to provide skills for this. And green energy has been working and introduced for quite a few years in the Maldives. And the education sector being present in every island, we work with the energy ministry to promote this and bring the clean energy into the system. So, but the workforce is a challenge, especially the women folk, because in the Maldives, leaving the island and going to another island to work for a female folk is still not acceptable. But this changes we have been trying to bring, and we are quite successful in that. We are proud to say that now some of the girls are working in the island resorts. So, but in again, it's working in energy sector or somewhere. Most of the girls they work in uh, tertiary industry or service industries, not physical jobs. So again, this is a new challenges for us. We have started working with the World Bank and for the baseline for us or the bedrock of it, this will be multi-sectoral collaboration to work together to bring them in. In fact, we are going to draw a roadmap for this, and World Bank is working with us, and for until 2030, we are going to have a roadmap for bringing in women folk into energy industry also. And next week we'll be having the meetings, start the surveys, how they feel, how the girls feels to join with the energy industry, especially. They see the solar panels installed in their schools. They see it. And training, we had to think of another way or new way. As the gentleman from NSD said, it has to be modern and it has to be, I mean, more going into them instead of they coming into us. Or it's a hybrid system we have to have. At their home, at their island, we need to reach them out. We need to have an app or something. So that was something that we have experienced. People to come in and do it. So those are some things that I would like to highlight for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and also highlighting the need for reaching out to a certain set of stakeholders who would need different interventions to be included in the overall skilling effort. So may I turn to Mr. Kafle for your kind of inputs on what Nepal is doing in respect to skilling in the energy transition space.
Thank you for the question. Before moving to the challenges, we have an apex body for technical education and vocational training that is mandated by the government, where I works for here as a member secretary. It has different kind of training courses. We conduct up to middle level courses. There are up to diploma, that is called diploma level, and short term vocational training are also conducting through the Council for Technical Education and Vocational Training. We have a good connection with the private sector also. There is a skill sector committee before the preparation of curricular development. We involved with the private sector to make the curricula. And there are 1,500 training institutions. Most of them are private sector institutes. They are affiliated from the council. And vocational training is free for all by the government. We are moving to the skilling all the people, to Nepali people. So challenges being faced to prepare the workforce are is the main constraint is budgetary or financial constraint is the main challenge to implement the proposed plans and activities. Other challenges are no working culture together with combining ideas to the partners, with the partners, lack of proper communication in sharing of lessons learnings among the partners from different organizations or different countries, and bridging among the concerned stakeholders or ministries and develop capacity building plans and activities. And it's very difficult to difficulty on regulatory interventions. And there are 12 ministries are conducting different kind of short courses training. Overlapping of the training is also challenge. So I would say these are the main challenges, combining with the all together, sit together and minimize the overlapping is the most challenge to us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And obviously, I think budget, a common question for all the countries sitting here, the group, and the number of people to be trained, budgets are always a constraint. The issue of overlapping kind of a training programs, that's also something is a concern. We'll come to a discussion on regional cooperation, but before that, let me invite Arpit. We have been working very closely with the Skill Council for Green Jobs on several training programs with respect to renewable energy. So Arpit, a quick question, if you can go a little deeper on the process which Skills Council for Green Job adopts from planning to actual implementation. And the second part is, if you can maybe list out the training programs which are already available, which are relevant for most of the South Asian countries. Over to you, Arpit.
Yeah. I'd like to first thank USAID team for inviting me here. Thank you, Anurag. It has been always a pleasure working with you. So Skills Councils for Green Jobs was essentially created in 2015. And as the name suggests, we have areas like renewable energy, sustainable development, environment, forest, and climate change. Our primary responsibility is to do a skill gap study in every sector. So, for example, in renewable energy, we have subsectors like solar, wind energy, hydropower, small hydro, I mean, and biomass. Similarly, we have areas like waste management, we have green constructions, green transportation, and now green hydrogen has been added to the list of subsectors of skills councils for green jobs. So, as I mentioned, our primary objective is to do a skill gap study in every sector, then go back to the industry and identify what kind of jobs are available. So we identify the job roles. After identification of a job role, our designing team, our technical team develops the qualification pack. That qualification pack is again vetted by the industry as a process which we call the industry validation, and then sent to National Skills Development Corporation as well as National Council for Vocational Education and Training for approvals. And once this qualification pack has been approved, then it has been rolled out for the training and certification. The second very important task that we do is we identify suitable training institutions across the country who can actually deliver these training programs. And in order to do the capacity building of these training institutions, we do a training of trainers program. These trainers are sometimes identified by the Sector Skill Council, and most of the times they are being nominated by the training body itself. The training material is being prepared by the Sector Skill Council. When I say training material, it is the student material, student handbook, the faculty guide, the model curriculum, and finally the assessment and certification of the candidate is being done. Now, we believe that all these trainings that are being carried out, these vocational trainings being carried out, are done as per the standards of the industry. So we expect, NSDC also expects a minimum percentage of candidates being placed and some minimum candidates being becoming entrepreneurs in the country. So this is the entire value chain that is being carried out by Skills Council for Green Jobs. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ankit. I'm looking at the clock. We have 15 minutes. So I think one important point of discussion is on regional collaboration, and probably a common question for all of us. But what I'm kind of really looking at is there are technologies which are emerging. So we have to figure out the ways through which we're able to upgrade the training programs as the technology evolves. I think that's one challenge. Second is the scale of training which is required, and comparing that with the budget. So how we can make trainings more cost effective in terms of both development and delivery. And the third is there a way through a regional cooperation this can be addressed, and what are the opportunities? So I'll first start with Mr. Vedmani Tiwari for his reflection, but I'll also request other panelists to think about it and give your comments. So what is it?
So, as Mr. Kafle was saying that in Nepal there are multiple ministries doing the same programs again and again. It's a reflection that there is a lot of wastage also in the skill ecosystem. When we talk of budgets, there is a lot of wastage also in the system. So one thing that we can do is that we had this problem before National Skill Development Corporation came into being in the country. We have brought a lot of standardization. We have also, so what National Skill Development Corporation does is that standardize a course, and various ministries can use that course. It's like a open source model that you create an open source training ecosystem, standard modules for trainers training, standard module for assessors training. We have even developed a common cost norms. So these are the, and we have also done standard certification, assessment methods. These are the things that we can share with the participants here from the coming from other countries. As you talked about technology, we are also recently we did a future of work exhibition in Bhubaneswar, where we demonstrated that how augmented realities and virtual reality based training systems can bring down the cost significantly. It is both in terms of speed, scale, and scope. It is impossible to reach every corner where the energy transition is happening. But if we deploy digital technologies in skilling, that can be very powerful. We could demonstrate. There were some very powerful demonstrations there, like for nursing care. There was a virtual reality based hospital where a nurse can walk in. There are all the parameters of a newborn child they could monitor. There were haptic tools. So there's a lot on these things that we can develop. We are building our own platform for virtual reality based and augmented reality based ecosystem. Language tools become an important criteria here because there's a so even there in India we are working on a tool called Bhashini and Anuvadini. These are the natural language translation models. We have also deployed a very effectively WhatsApp as a tool for training. So lots of small capsule-based skilling capsules can be sent over WhatsApp. So I believe that every country has a unique challenge and opportunity. And thanks to India being such a vast country, we have almost been exposed to almost every problem that any country would have come across. And happy to extend our NSDC's partnership to, as I told you, that we have set up a subsidiary company called NSDC International. Through NSDC International, we'll be happy to extend these opportunities to every other country in the region.
Thank you so much. So please take a note. He has offered a lot of things, a lot of courses respect to the sector, the use of technology, digital technologies, the language tool. So learnings can be drawn from the NSDC's experience, and if there is a interest in collaboration, we will be happy to explore and kind of facilitate through USAID program. Mr. Rashid, if we can invite your comments on the opportunities for regional collaboration here.
Thank you. We're really happy that India has already extended its assistance to us. So actually, we have the base for, training. One thing is our school system is based on English medium. So understanding English and working in English is quite familiar for most of us. And the systems, and usually when we do most of our trainings, India has been our neighbor and has been assisting us mostly. So it's another opportunity for us to tie up with NSDC and do it. Instead of reinventing the cycle and putting everything in, I think we could use his hybrid model to extend our trainings. So to give the opportunities. Because if we reinvent the model and we do the setup, and it's again the challenge of financing comes in. But if we can take a ride with them, it would be more beneficial, especially for us being so small and the challenges being faced. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So before I invite Mr. Kafe, let me again go back to Arpit. You mentioned about the processes which are adopted, but after the creation of training programs, the infrastructure for delivery, the training institutions, the training of trainers, the certification of trainings, and again, seeing that the industry is really ready to accept the trained manpower. And the training programs on the different technologies you have developed. What can be offered from India's side to other South Asian countries? The existing training institutions, can they offer regional training programs? Are there opportunities for the training of trainers from those countries to come, or the cross collaboration amongst the training institutions in India with the training institutions in other South Asian countries? So we can reflect on that.
So
I can come to you, sir.
I'll be a little crisp due to the paucity of time, but I would like to highlight that there can be a vast difference when we talk about clean energies or renewable energy, which is the biggest booming sector today. There can be a lot of difference between countries in their economies, in their business, in their volumes. But essentially, the technology more or less remains the same. So you cannot change the laws of physics, or you cannot change the principles of electronics. So I would like to, on that note, I would like to tell you that we have designed our qualifications, our training programs uh, with such organizations who are somewhere or the other, directly or indirectly, multinationals, and they are associated with in India. They are kind of expanding in our country. I would also like to tell you that recently we happened to sign an MOU with international solar organization. It's a federation. And after reviewing our existing curriculums and training programs, they're pretty happy to give an opportunity to Indian candidates, Polytechnic and ITI diploma holders to work abroad. Of course, language would be one of the barriers, but I believe technology is definitely not one of the barriers. So as Ved sir mentioned, that standardization is very important. One big activity which India as a nation needs to do is mapping of various international standards along with the Indian standards, so that whatever gap is there can be bridged and our Indian manpower can be prepared for being a part of an international workforce.
Thank you. May I invite comments from Mr. Kafle, please?
Regarding skill standards, we have 326 standards identified and approved from the council. In clean energy, we have curricula in energy efficiency, occupational skill standard, in energy auditor, and diploma course in hydropower engineering. That is ongoing in our constituent institute. And some other courses of curricula is also going to be prepared regarding clean energy and clean and green TV. We have also incorporated our curricula about green Tibet also focused in our curricula, and we can collaborate with India. We are also collaborating to sending by our instructors in NTTR, Chennai, and other institutions for instructional training. And in our case also TITI, there is technical instructions for instructors also. So we are trying to make efforts on these matters, focusing with the short courses, skill enhancements activities. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Poonam, we've been talking a lot about all the initiatives taken up by the countries and all. And again, the use of technology. We spoke about VI, AI kind of another kind of language tools. Do you see there is a need for uh, more efforts for a better inclusion so that the gender considerations are there part of any skilling program we do, whether in the energy sector or any other sectors which are missed out and can be thought about by the respective countries here?
Yeah, it's great to hear about, all these structured training programs, and they are definitely the need of the hour. I do believe some of them will need, at least most of them will need a basic level of education. My experience has been more with working with women at the grassroots level, and there we do face the issue of not very high levels of education, sometimes being not educated either. But the one thing that is working to unify is technology. And even at the village level, we're able to conduct programs electronically. So that's definitely an enabler. I'm sure there can be technologies like in one of the sessions, this was a multi-regional session across a number of countries, not just South Asian, but even including African countries. And there were these automatic translators. So while one woman was talking, it was translating in the relevant language for others. I found that fascinating. But that actually gives me hope that there is scope for technology to come to the use of women at grassroots level. One of the things, so we have less structured programs for them, more experience based, where they can use the skills that they've learned to then get self-employed and earn some money out of it. But I think one of the things that I was mentioning in my presentation, and I see great potential for, is the South-South experience sharing platform, where women from rural areas can come together on electronic platform and share their learnings. I mean, there's rooftop solar pumps that I'm sure are common, clean energy equipment, all of them use. So what are the kind of challenges that they face, their homegrown solutions for overcoming those challenges, the challenges they face in society? A lot of the cultural context is also the same. I find women really get enthused by interacting with others, and this will help them, understand that they're not alone. It's not just in India that certain the issues such as these are faced, but across a number of countries. I think this can be a good learning tool. And the other thing I mentioned was, of course, video-based training programs with language voiceovers that can be easily then deployed across countries.
Great. Thank you so much. This is the last technical session of these 2 days of forum. We're talking about catalyzing partnerships and regional cooperation. And I see this is one of the area where the cooperation can happen more quickly. I am hearing from all the panelists here, there are several opportunities for that collaboration to happen. It's a software space to start with, but it has a very great contribution for energy transition. So thank you so much for your comments. I'm just looking at if there are questions from the floor. I see one hand here. Can we pass on the mic, please? And please.
Hi all, my name is Sunil. So as we all know that India has a very high ambitious target by 2030 to install 500 gigawatt from non-fossil fuels. So accordingly, a huge manpower is required, and approximately more than 3.54 million shortage of manpower. So my question is to both sir, NSDC and RP sir from SCGJ, like what is the plan of skill ecosystem to train that much of youth in India so that we can mitigate the target? Thank you.
So, first of all, few very important things are happening in India. One is that every country thinks that vocational education system has to work independent of school education. So we have gone ahead with a skill hub program where the skills are being taken to educational institutions. So be they higher education institution or school education system, we are taking skills to them so that we can utilize the infrastructure. And many places like engineering colleges, polytechnic institutions, ITIs have technical infrastructure also. The other thing that we are doing is the apprenticeship has come out as a very big opportunity for India. In the recent budget, our Honorable Finance Minister has taken a target of about 5 million people to be trained through apprenticeship. That's true public-private partnership, because the businesses come forward and they do from the apprenticeship, they get employees who they can have a good exposure earlier. And also students who want to participate in the clean energy system can take the benefit out of it. The third most important initiative is about that reskilling and upskilling. The government of India has launched a program which is called Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, and we have taken a target of about 150 million people to be trained over next 3 years. And reskilling, upskilling is a massive opportunity. And if you combine reskilling, upskilling with the energy transition, the just transition narrative that we have, that way you can see that there's a large program which is trying to touch every aspect of where the workforce will come from, or already the workforce is there, be already working people or those who will participate in the workforce.
I would like to add that, of course, when we talk about the ambitious target of 2030, uh, 450 gigawatts, net zero, 1 billion tons of emissions, reduction of emissions of uh, carbon dioxide. When we talk about green hydrogen production, India's green hydrogen mission, I'm only restricting to the green technologies because I am from that sector, Mr. Sunil. So I'd like to bring to everyone's notice that we are aiming at a few million jobs by 2030. Like uh, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy came up uh, with a quotation, with a number that for 5 million tons of million tons of metric production of green hydrogen, we would require around 6 lakh people by 2030, and this is only for green hydrogen. So Skills Councils for Green Job has a very huge plan in doing occupational mapping, in terms of identifying new technologies, designing new curriculum, affiliating new training institutions, and also focusing on industry paid programs which are market driven. So we firmly believe that the candidate also, we have to design the programs in such a way where the candidate takes value addition, and he also feels that before joining the program he would be employable in the industry. So there are a lot of initiatives that we have taken and we shall take in next few years in order to meet the requirements of the manpower. I would also like to add that we have recently we have become V partners, World Bank partners, uh, and our push would be that we increase the percentage of women in the renewable energy sector, their participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Arpit. My apologies if I can maybe,
Yeah.
sorry, we are just running out of time. The closing
So,
session is a quick
just
question.
maybe
Yes,
very quick
please.
question. Like there is a three different sector here. One is the education, another training, and the skill development. I'm really now giving example of the manufacturing sector, Indian manufacturer sector as well as the China. There was a one interview by a guy who is telling that his job was to tightening a particular screw in the Apple. And the work is from morning 8 a.m. to evening 5 a.m. So maybe he is highly skilled to do that. Couple of small skill he might have. But India, how we are really doing it. So one man in the he's doing the multiple kind of job. Maybe he's not so much of skill or semi-skill. So do you feel that same kind of skill development is really important for the Indian perspective, so that one guy is couple of small things can be done, no other things. So I don't know for the development of Indian manufacturing sector.
I don't think we'll get an answer to that quickly. I think it's an important things to kind of keep in mind and maybe discuss more later. I don't know if any of the panelists would like to comment on that. Okay, great. I was
So we are conscious of this, that gone are the days of Mr. Taylor. The workplaces demand flexibility from their workforce. And that is why micro credentialing becomes an extremely important construct. If you see the qualification packs that NCVT approves, they have gnosis. And we are working on a concept called skill taxonomy, where every job role can acquire a dynamic dimension, where you can keep on adding or deleting or changing the micro skills that is required to perform that job role. And we have built a Skill India digital platform through which one can quickly go there and do a very short-term skilling. We call it sachet-size skilling. Maybe a few hours of skilling is good enough for such kind of a thing.
Arpit, you wanted to comment?
I think Ved Sahab has said it all. Uh, but yeah, vertical progression for any individual is very important in the industry. So, like for example, we have job roles like installation job roles, a solar PV installer, electrical or a civil. Now he needs to actually migrate upwards to from an installer to a designer. So we have designed those kind of job roles. If there's a commerce guy, he wants to get into he wants to learn how to finance a solar project or a RE project. So we have designed such kind of job roles where an individual, after fulfilling a certain criteria and doing a certification at a particular level, can migrate vertically upwards. And this is how he would be multi-skilled. And no one would disagree that today industry requires a multi-skilled individual rather than in a country like India rather than doing a particular task. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. So we are on time. I'd like to thank all my panelists, and please put your hand together for thanking them. Also handing it back to the team to facilitate the panelists.
Thank you for such a deliberate discussion. And to invite John Smith Serene to please present a memento to all our speakers and panelists. I would request John if you can present the memento to Ms. Poonam. Mr. Asif Rashid, Mr. Vedmani Tiwari, Mr. Jeev Narayan Kafle, Mr. Arpit Sharma. Once again, thanks a lot for your time and the discussions.